farming is one of the most direct paths to real wealth in Ultima Online. No lucky drops required, just the focused slaying of enemies that respawn periodically in specific areas. Stacking up gold you can put straight toward rare pets, artifacts, high-end crafted gear, or even property. You could grind your way to all of that just by playing the game normally. But having the gold on hand to simply buy it from another player saves an enormous amount of time. HOTAKA Plains is a great place to start, especially if you're still becoming established. You're targeting the Hiryu and Lesser Hiryu, vicious bird-like creatures which occasionally spawn in rare hues. They're able to dismount riders, so if you're running a melee build, bring an ethereal mount instead of a regular one. They fall into the Dragon Slayer group, so equip a dragon or reptile slayer weapon or spellbook. Lesser Hiryu shouldn't give you trouble on their own, but a full group of Hiryu can turn into a real fight. Slaying enemies isn't the only way to build wealth. Treasure maps and messages in a bottle are another route, and they're generally less risky with more consistent returns. I've already covered cache treasure maps in a previous video, and that method actually gives the best gold for time ratio out there. But today we're focused purely on generating gold by taking down enemies. If you enjoy this content, please consider giving the video a like or hit subscribe. If you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. For these locations I'll be running a Sampire, though builds like the Archer Tamer, the Bushido Paladin, or the Wraith Healer would handle this just as effectively. I'm going to run through these in roughly the order of difficulty, with a bonus location thrown in at the end. These should apply on any community server running the original set of maps, though keep in mind individual server owners often tweak things. How fast spawns repopulate, how much gold drops, or whether extra creatures get added to a location, or removed from one entirely. I won't be quoting specific gold per hour numbers, since that swings wildly depending on your build and playstyle, but I'll keep the gold I collect visible on screen as we go, so you can get a feel for it yourself. One quick disclaimer before we get into it. None of this is meant to encourage running fully automated AFK scripts. Most server owners keep a close eye on their economy, and for good reason. That said, gold farming done properly can be genuinely enjoyable and rewarding, especially once your character is fully geared up and confident enough to handle high-risk situations without flinching. Takuno's Bushido Dojo is another relatively easy farming location, with a large number of Ronin to slay, and they pay out well. Chivalry's enemy of one works great here since almost every enemy in the area is the same type. Ronin don't have a specific slayer weakness, but they can dismount you, so bring an ethereal mount. They're vulnerable to being disarmed though, which is an interesting option to neutralize their damage output. Otherwise, a double-axis whirlwind attack is the most efficient way to handle the larger groups. Once you clear the area range, it may take a while to build back up. Gold pieces add weight fast, so it's critical to carry a couple of bags of sending. You can earn these as a reward from the ambitious Solon Queen quest, or just pick one up through vendor search from players who farmed the quest multiple times. A bag of sending lets you send items or piles of gold straight to your bank box, and most dungeons and farming locations allow you to use it. If you'd rather have extra physical storage instead, a blue beetle works well too. Weight capacity matters more than people give it credit. If your character goes overweight unexpectedly, stamina starts draining fast the moment you move, and once it hits 0, you're stuck in place, which is a genuinely dangerous spot to be in if enemies are still closing in. If you're running a non-melee character, aim for at least 20 dexterity, since that gives you a minimum 20 stamina and a bit of a buffer before you're in trouble. It also pays to travel light and cut back on unnecessary gear to keep your weight limit as high as possible. Human characters get a passive 60 stones of extra carrying capacity, and stacking as much strength as you can manage adds even more room to work with. Also, having the spell Curse cast on your character can greatly reduce carry weight capacity as a result of reduced strength. Use Chivalry's Remove Curse or Enchanted Apples to maintain weight capacity. Just as important, get an auto-loot function running through your game launcher before you start. I'm using Orion, which pulls gold off nearby corpses automatically, almost like a vacuum, so I can keep my attention on keeping myself or my pet alive instead of babysitting loot. Without it, you're stuck manually dragging and dropping gold off every corpse, which is tedious and honestly a dangerous distraction when you're mid-fight. Now, not every location pulls its weight equally when it comes to gold, and there are a couple of things worth factoring in before you commit to one. The best spots have enemies that drop a solid amount of gold, sit at a moderate hit point pool, and don't come loaded with abilities that can seriously cripple your character. Something like a Satyr's Discordance is the kind of thing you want to avoid. The goal is steady, consistent kills at a good pace, not grinding away at a handful of tanky high gold targets that eat up all your time. The other big factor is how quickly enemies respawn. Some locations are great for a full clear and collect, but then you're stuck waiting or having to circle back later once the spawn has had time to repopulate. Spawns regenerate somewhere in the 5 to 10 minute range, up to a set quota per spawn point. A solid routine is to string several locations together using runebook marked spots, and plenty of dungeons and overland areas work well for exactly that. Next up is the Tomb of Kings, located in the Turmoor landmass. To get in, head to the first room, stand near the small flame on the west side and say ORD, then move to the flame on the east side and say ANORD. You'll know it worked when the flames go out and the large energy barrier drops, letting you through into the main dungeon hallway. Each of the smaller rooms inside has its own energy barrier as well, which would ordinarily require pulling a series of levers in the entry chamber, but on this server, those levers and the inner chamber fields have been removed, giving you free access into every room. The rooms respawn every 15 minutes as long as they've been cleared, so it's worth killing everything in each one and checking back later. There's a teleport tile in the back room if you need to return to the entry chamber. Undead Guardians go down faster to Undead Slayer weapons. DESTARD in FELUCCA is more populated than its Trammel counterpart, with greater dragons posing the biggest threat. Dragons themselves aren't too hard to handle, just watch out for the poison coming off any wyverns in the mix. The best approach is to skirt the edges and take on smaller sections of the spawn rather than diving into the middle, slowly clearing the first level. Once that initial spawn is dealt with, head down to level 2 where shadow worms live, then level 3 for the ancient worm, before circling back up to level 1 to mop up whatever's respawned. Locations like these are easy to reach, which also means they tend to get camped by other gold farmers or tamers. Nobody's stopping you from jumping in on a spawn, but it's good etiquette to either ask to join in, or just move on to another location for the time being and check back later. The very best locations combine moderate to high difficulty enemies, strong gold drops, and spawns that either repopulate fast or trigger by proximity. Twisted WEALD and the Citadel are the standouts here. Both come with more risk since there's rarely a break in the action, but the payout more than makes up for it. Getting into Twisted WEALD starts with accepting a quest from Lorekeeper Calendar in the Elven City of Heartwood. If you want permanent access, just leave the quest incomplete rather than turning it in or canceling it. The swamp area where the spawn lives can be a little tricky to navigate, but once you're in, the bottom east corners are the spot to be. Named spiders and changelings spawn here on a proximity timer, which means they keep coming with barely any delay between waves. Gold builds up fast here, so having a couple of bags of sending on hand isn't optional, it's essential. The area suits Sampires or taming hybrid builds well, but a pure bard tamer can shine here too, leaning on bardic spell songs to keep pets topped up while provocation turns enemies against each other. The Citadel is a very consistent gold farming location. Like Twisted WEALD, it requires a placeholder quest first, this one from Siraki, found in Britain just outside the castle gate. Take any of the quests Siraki offers and leave it unfinished to keep your access open. To actually get into the dungeon, double-click the small wooden crate near HOTAKA Plains. Inside, you'll find it packed with ninjas, along with sect followers from either Tiger Claw, Dragon's Flame, or Serpent's Spawn. There are hidden doors scattered around too, which you can spot by turning on the circle of transparency in the game settings. I go into more detail on that in my previous video on the Peerless Boss Travesty. Broadly, there are 3 pathways down to the lower levels, all stacked with timed and proximity spawns that keep the enemies coming with no real cap. As a bonus dungeon that's a bit more work to reach, but rarely sees other players, there's the Prism of Light. Getting in means buying a ticket for 10,000 gold pieces from the NPC stationed at the entrance, and that same ticket doubles as your way out. Just double-click it or set it up as a one-key macro. The dungeon plays out as a series of rooms you work through, and certain creatures along the way have a chance to drop keys toward the Peerless Boss, the Shimmering Effusion. For farming purposes though, the real interest is in the last 2 rooms, home to crystal lattices, the floating white bird-like creatures, and unfrozen mummies, the bright blue zombie-like ones. Crystal lattices go down easier to Fey Slayer weapons and spellbooks, while unfrozen mummies are weak to undead slayers. Once those rooms are cleared, there's a safe alcove where nothing spawns so you can sit tight, go into hiding, or even log out for a bit while the area builds back up. Respawns generally land somewhere in the 5 to 10 minute range, up to a set quota. There are also quest givers tucked in a side exit cave to the south, with a chance to hand out crafting recipes or trinkets once you turn in their quest item, so over time you can pick up a good chunk of those recipes on the side while you're farming gold. That's the rundown of some of the best locations to farm gold in Ultima Online, from quick and easy starting points all the way up to the highest risk, highest reward dungeons. I'm sure I haven't covered every good spot out there, so if you've got a favorite gold farming location, or think I've missed one worth mentioning, drop it in the comments. Get your bags of sending sorted and you'll be sitting on a serious pile of gold in no time. More than enough to buy your way into whatever rare pet, artifact, or piece of gear you've had your eye on. Good luck, and thanks for watching.